Welcome to the Tuesday Night Crit, presented by Turbo Velo. The Masters 40 Plus, race 304, Series 5. Here we get going. This race is about 30-35 minutes long. And let's update the standings. So my team is in 5th and 6th place in this series, with 6 points for Ryan, 6 points for Andrew, and Pegasus with Cato is in 1st place with Gary Durheim, both with 10 points. Gary with Lineate, both of those guys are in this race. 3rd and 4th places in the series are not present. And we have David Libre, or David, I think he goes by. He's in 7th place in the series. So that kind of sets the stage for this. So Pegasus, we knew, would be very interested in Cato getting into the break. And I'll point out that team as we view them here in the video. The team that I am on, Chaney WIndows and Doors, we're in the yellow and blue kits. We see Nagi there on the left on the rainbow colored bike. That is the kit that we are on. Just in front of me here is Brent, and he's in the Cadence kit. Brent was on the podium for the last series, but has played a more supporting role as his other teammates have gone up the road in this particular series, so he sits there at 0 points despite being a very strong racer, including the reigning Masters 50 plus State Texas time trial champion. I hope I got that right. But that's so just to indicate that, you know, he's a powerful rider. And Cadence are out in numbers tonight. We see them in these black and white kits. The gentleman, I think this is RG right in front of me, with the GoPro on his rear saddle. The wind tonight is coming out of the south, so we're going through the chicane. As we come out of this chicane, the wind is coming from our right to our left, and we see the first attack and dig here, putting a little bit of pressure on me as I get gapped. Again, I can't say that my legs are really good. The little tricky dip there, and a gap opens up. And I have several teammates that are up ahead here, and not through any particular choice, gap opens up. At this point, it's a choice, and I'm letting a gap open up, because I don't want to close it down, and maybe it's to my advantage if that smaller group gets away. So again, one rider sensing the danger goes up ahead, and these riders, including one of my teammates here, which is Jorge right in front of me, and Jason Bradbury right in front of him, they don't want to lose out on the race in the first lap, at least Jason there. So we're letting Jason do a little bit of work for us. Jason got 5th in the race last week, ahead of all of us on our team, so he's put in nice form recently. And my teammate going up the road, and again, maybe I'm okay with my teammate going up the road with that group and me being left behind. But I certainly don't want to be left behind if other people are going to do the work to bring us back together. So there goes Brent. I don't think Brent was very happy with me opening up that gap. But again, it wasn't really like, oh, I'm going to open up a gap on the first lap. It's like, oh, this is going a little hard right now. My legs aren't feeling good. Not taking the turn technically very well. And okay, but who cares? We're all back together. So some people did some work. You know, that's part of racing here, which is the work differential. Who's doing more work? Who's resting? All of that is really important. And even in like a lap and a half, there can be deficits created in some people's energy that will be useful later on in the race, even though we're Grupo Compacto right now. So there on the right side, I think that's RG Cadence going up the road, and I'm not sure who's on his wheel there. Can't remember. But anyway, they are up the road. I think that's guy on his own individual team, and I don't know his name. One of the riders to watch out for is actually Cato's teammate on Pegasus. He's on the very distinct pink bike, which is up ahead at the very front of the field. His name is Surfer Nick. And again, I've mentioned him in previous videos. Surfer Nick is the guy that I crashed as he was laying on the ground in the A race at the beginning of the season and went over the bars. Long story there, but don't need to get into. But he's recovered and he's back racing, which is good to see, and he is extremely strong. So he's one of those guys, you know, sometimes we have the 40 plus race here, and you got some guys that are just like one level higher than everybody else and would be expected to win more often than not. He is at that level, despite the fact that he's injured or was injured, and is recovering still from a broken collarbone. He said that he was back on the bike in 5 days, so I assume that meant that he got surgery and then he was back on the bike in 5 days, but no, he did not get surgery despite 4 breaks in his collarbone. Back on the bike in 5 days and back on the road on his bike in 10 days, I think it was, he said. So a hard man on the bike here. So you can see with the wind coming from the left to right, from the south, there's Lee there, the famed photographer of cycling in our area, getting in some nice photographs this evening. Lee McDaniel, you can check out his Facebook page. There are a lot of good photos that he puts up there. I do a little bit of photography just as a minor hobby. His photos are really at a different level. He's a professional. So we're going to spend a lot of time in the gutter, presumably in this race, as the wind is pretty strong. I didn't mention the temperature. The temperature was above 100, I believe, at the start of the race. I think the forecast was saying it was going to be 102. So another heat acclimating kind of day on the bike. For those of you that are waiting for the heat to go away before you next race in the Tuesday night crit, I've got news for you. I don't think that day is coming. It's going to be hot every time. So we're not going to cancel because it's 100, 101, 102, and so forth. We're just going to ride. And that's what we do here in Texas. We ride our bikes in the heat. So with Ryan and Andy on my team tied with 6 points in the overall series, those are the riders we need to prioritize for placement in the series and getting the most points. So I'm going to be playing a secondary role in this bike race. In other words, I'm not looking out for my own results. I'm rather looking for to support my teammates, whether that's to help someone get into the break, or if they do get in a break, to control the field. So we see one of our riders going into the grass, which is highly discouraged if you do it on purpose, and also discouraged to do on accident. So it's a little bit dangerous getting back onto the concrete once you're onto the grass. But we're gonna, I know it's been kind of a boring start here, but we're gonna get a little bit in terms of digs and attacks and a little bit of strategy to think about here. I believe that's my teammate on the front, not putting an attack, but kind of speeding up the race. And again, everyone on the far right in the gutter, absolutely in the back here on the gutter, not getting really any aerodynamic benefit from being in the group because of being in the gutter in the crosswind. This is a race that is pretty wide open in terms of the wind access, so the wind is not being held back by anything like houses or fences or trees or anything like that, or the terrain. So wind plays a big role. So we don't really have like the technical turns or a lot of technical features where you have to lay off the power and you have to like pass and turn in very small narrow windows. This is a power oriented course, but it's heavily influenced by the wind. So every single moment in this race, you're kind of thinking, where do I want to be in relation to the wind? In fact, you're planning sort of from corner to corner, before each corner, where do I need to be in terms of the more favored. So this is my teammate Adam, who we just passed, and he had been on the front doing some work, so falling back a little bit. We are gapped here. So this is Brent pulling things back. He has some teammates there in front of him. But, that doesn't mean he shouldn't do the work to bring this back. It may not be quite the mix of folks that is advantageous to his team. So that's kind of, that's your call to make as somebody in the back, especially someone as strong as Brent, who would be one of the favorites to be on the podium for this race and generally in the series. There's 2 races left, this race and the next race. So the maximum points anyone has is 10. This is really still up for grabs. So like if Brent wins this race, conceivably, he could win the whole series still, even though he has 0 points right now. Here on the right in Cadence is Sam. Sam is the previous Masters 40 Plus Texas Cup champion a few years ago. Not been out racing as much this year, but a really good guy that I've been doing group rides with for a long time. And again, we see gap open up here. One Cadence rider, Joel, opening up a little gap there. But we see the other Cadence rider, Brent, here on the front. Again, he's not like super attacking and like bringing this back, but there's a gap that he's maintaining. And he's not all the way to the right, guttering everyone. And, or maybe he's rethinking it at this point. Now he's rethinking it. You know, kind of thinking, where should I be? What should I do? What's to my advantage? What's to our team's advantage at this point? So speaking of like, you know, other team's advantage. So Gary, who's tied for first with 10 points, he doesn't have any teammates. So it's all up to him to figure out what to do that's to his advantage. He wants to get in a breakaway. He's a breakaway-oriented rider. Kato, also in first place with 10 points. He is a breakaway-oriented rider as well. So Brent there, you know, he sits up. He's not going to close down that gap. It's not his responsibility. Let somebody else close down that gap. And these couple riders here, Wilson and Jason, are going to move forward and close down the gap. So again, sort of grupo compacto. You know, this is the kind of racing that gets really kind of tiring when you're not really fit. And you're kind of wishing the breakaway would just go, so you can, you know, stay in the back and rest. And really, it's becoming quite tactical here. So, who's going to put in the next dig? This is not because we're not going this speed, you know, like 160 watts or you know, whatever, because we're tired. Although we may be a little bit tired. My MPA is at 1100, so I'm experiencing some fatigue here. As that number drops, maximum power available. That indicates the level of fatigue I have. So I'm under some fatigue here. I'm not full gas. I can't go full gas. And when you look at that number, you can interpret how tired I am relative to the algorithm to determine how much power I have remaining available at any given moment. So Jason goes on the front here. I'm more in like a controlling sort of posture where I want to possibly monitor stuff from the front, but I don't want to be on the very front here. My teammate on the right, Adam, again, you know, kind of lifting the pace a little bit. There may be moments where it's advantageous to lift the pace. And, for example, lifting the pace may discourage attacks or discourage really hard attacks coming from the back. It's harder to attack when the group is going faster, i.e. you can't get that break the elastic kind of gap. So I was second wheel just a moment ago, but with Adam going forward and the row of riders going after him, I'm falling back to a more rear position. So there were 29 riders that started, racers that started the race. So a relatively big field for July, 100 plus temperatures. You know, this crit series has been going on for quite a while now over the summer and the spring. And me going into the wind a little bit in the crosswind just to get a little bit better position here, but still staying out of the wind. This is, I believe, Gary, two bike riders ahead of me, who's tied for first place in the series. This is Surfer Nick to my right on the pink bike, and independent rider number 609 on the right here. I know from the previous race that this is a strong rider too. Meaning he did a lot of work chasing in one of the races where breakaway went pretty early. So I know that he's got a motor. But let's see what happens going into the headwinds here. So we're going a little bit slower, just under, 19 miles an hour. So this is a pretty slow pace where, again, it's tactical. Who's going to make the next move? Who's going to expend their energy to try to get a breakaway going? And now the answer is my teammate. That's Adam. Is that Adam? I think it's Adam. And of course, no one's going to let him go. Andy, or Andrew, two riders in front of me. He has won a series this year. So he's one of the riders we're obviously looking out for to help support, as he is tied for, I guess, 5th. I think that's what I said at the beginning of the video in the series. I believe we're at 5th and 6th, Andy and Ryan. So yeah, that was Adam. That put in a little dig there, but not going hard enough to actually formulate a gap. Now, seeing on the right here, on the far right in the front, Gary, he definitely wants something to go. you know, but he's not in the back. If he's going to attack from here, he's got to attack from the front. Or more realistically, he's probably waiting for someone else to attack, and then he's going to judge whether that's a promising break that he wants to glom onto. No, at one point in this race, the guy throwing water kind of like disoriented me. Like trying to pay attention to my line, the riders, the water splashed on me. Almost took myself out. I'm not familiar with this rider right in front of me here that I'm on his wheel, but he plays a little role in the end here, with at least in relation to where I am in the race. So I know he's a strong rider as well. Well, to the extent I guess I'm a strong rider, which I would argue I'm not, but at least not right now. So I guess it's faint praise to say perhaps that one is with me, but we'll see what happens again. So let's see, a little bit of something or other here, but no break yet. So most of our other races, we are more than like halfway through this, and the break has not been successful. It's not really gotten up the road. Okay, here's Cato in the leader's jersey on the right with the Trek bibs. It's definitely someone we're going to watch out for. I think teammate Adam is saying watch Cato. We're going to definitely keep our eyes on him. Adam has a lot of experience being a former professional cyclist who raced in Europe previously on a professional team. So during the race, he's giving me some instructions from time to time of what he expects me to do, or what role he wants me to play in relation to the team tactics. So for example, he talked to me during the race about if it's a bunch sprint, this is where you're going to do the lead out. This is where I expect that you're going to be going to the front, and how far I expect you to go in this. And actually, what he told me is that he expected me to go on that previous straight, i.e. after turn 1, before turn 2, and to lead him potentially out to the end of the chicane here. At least that's my understanding of what he said. But we'll see if that necessarily plays out in the race at the end, if there is a lead out. Now, Cato here, so the situation here that's kind of interesting is that the two leading guys are both breakaway specialists, or at least we think of them as breakaway specialists, and not really sprinters. But do they have surprises up their sleeve? We shall see. Not a breakaway up the road yet. Maybe this is where I get splashed and disoriented. I can't remember. Yeah, I think it's here. Yeah, well, who knows if it was right then. He splashed me a couple times. But I think he was actually splashing his friend that I must have been near. I get passed by several people here. David here in front of me was on the podium last week. So we got to watch out a little bit for him too. It also indicates he's strong enough to be in the breakaway that goes off the front that our team couldn't chase back. So again, kind of filing away your database of who's who. Obviously, when you've never met a guy, never raced with a guy, don't know who he is, that's different. But now we have like at least one data point. At least I do. Maybe some of my other teammates are more familiar with him. At this point, I'm totally trying to conserve energy by just following wheels, staying out of the wind, and trying to save my energy to see if there's a moment that it's actually necessary to use it. And I'm being able to keep a pretty close eye on Cato, who's a couple bikes ahead of me. Here's Brent, the big cat. On my right, he will be at Masters Nationals very soon. So if you're going to Masters Nationals and you're watching this video in your 50 plus, be watching out for him. Say hello. Andy, my teammate, is also going to be at Masters Nationals. Ryan might be going to Masters Nationals. I can't remember if he said he was going or not. A couple of my teammates will also be going to, what's it called, the St. Louis one, Gateway Cup. Ryan goes to that every year, but Andy will be going to that as well. So they are both 50 plus so if you're racing that, you might expect to see them. So there goes the big cat himself, Brent, off the front. Really big attack. Very well timed tailwind when he went. And because he has 0 points, it's not immediately obvious what should be done in terms of chasing this. Now, I think it's my teammate that now has put in a dig on the very front to start to bring this back, or at least catch up to it. And riding on the far left, you see, so not guttering the group, i.e. letting people behind, including teammates, get some shelter and rest. If you gutter the group, it really demotivates people from doing further chasing that might otherwise be motivated for chasing because they're just too tired. They're just as tired as you who put in the dig and the pull. So Brent's got a pretty nice gap there. And now we're going into the headwind. A little bit harder to pull into the headwind, and everyone else is getting more of a draft, obviously, with the headwind than compared to the crosswind. Now, I want to say there could have been a preem before. At some point, I think Brent gets the preem, and I can't remember. I was thinking, is he just going for the preem, and then he's maintained the gap because he got a big gap? That was going through my head at this point. Of course, the Cadence riders are going to be demotivated to chase. They're not really sitting very high in the series right now because the guys who placed the highest are not actually here today, Chad and Chris. So they're kind of, to some degree out of the running in the sense that they're having to come from behind in the series. But, Brent wins this. It's 10 points. He's right back in the hunt of potentially winning the series. You're not out just because you're at 0 in race 3 out of 4. Again, I'm not doing the chasing here, but we see a couple riders moving up, catching up to Brent's wheel, and a gap has opened, and I believe one of those is one of my teammates. Now, I believe my teammate here, Adam, did a lot of that chasing that closed down the gap to Brent, so falling back a little bit, but just getting right back into the draft and me being on his wheel. Now, with the teammate up the road in podium position, I do not have an incentive. We do not have an incentive with 2 laps to go to bring that group back. This could be a potential race-winning move for our teammate. Andy is the one that's in the break. And with Surfer Nick, I mentioned him in the pink bike, arguably the strongest rider in the group. So Andy, Brent, and Surfer Nick. So we could argue that the 3 sort of major, most represented teams in the crit are now in the breakaway, 1 rider each represented. That means that the rest of us are not motivated to chase this back. However, Nick is sitting at 0 points versus Cato. If they could switch that where Surfer Nick is in the back, but Cato's with those 2, that would obviously be more advantageous in terms of winning the series. But again, if Surfer Nick wins the race, 10 points, it's a nice card to play. It's not a bad situation at all for them, because we can argue Surfer Nick is potentially motivated to, we can see that he's third wheel right now. You can just barely see in the distance. I understand that was the situation the whole time that the breakaway was going away, is that he's third wheel. Now he's telling the other guys, well, I'm riding for Cato, so I'm just marking this. So he can use that strategy instead of contributing to the break, saying, I don't care if it comes back. Now you can see here me coming to the front. We are now at about 1.5 laps to go. And I am sort of like in this sort of, go fast enough that we're not just crawling, but at the same time, not fast enough that we're closing down the brake. We're trying to bring the brake back. And Cato here right in front of me, and the Cadence rider here. So Cato attacks before turn 3. Now this is what he's trying to do here is attack with the tailwind. No one's getting a huge draft benefit because of the tailwind. and maybe he can make it up to the break, not bring anyone up, and he can get some more points. That will be, potentially his ticket to win the series. And if he gets up to the break, of course, his teammate will be working for him. Now, luckily, this Cadence rider here really helped close this down, and Kato is not getting away without us. I don't know exactly what was going on behind us in terms of, did a little gap open up behind me or something? I'm not sure. Now, I mentioned David earlier in the race. He's the guy that was on the podium last week. He's racing for himself. He doesn't have any teammates. And that's a pretty good gap there. That was a very well-timed attack into the with the crosswind. And we do not want him to get fourth place. So at this point, I am on the front. And this is a tricky part here. I want to prevent David from getting fourth, but I don't want our group to catch up to the breakaway ahead, the top three, which includes my teammate. So there's kind of this balance here, but I'm not really thinking that much. I'm just thinking I need to get up to David, and trying to get a little more aero position here. Again, I'm not in great fitness. You can watch the MPA number here. Now, I'm getting instructions from Adam, so I know Adam, my teammate's right behind me. And at this point, I believe is when he told me, hey, ease up, slow down. We're getting too close, basically, to the breakaway group. This is the final lap. We don't want to close that gap down to the point that people behind us feel like they can close the gap and get there and we can overtake the group. I think we possibly could have if everyone had worked together and I had gone harder and so forth. So I had to purposefully ease up here. And David is cooked. We've caught him. And I think we've gone just hard enough that everyone is demotivated to close down that gap and go for the podium. And now everyone is thinking about the rest of the places. So they see them up the road. You can see that Surfer Nick is way up the road. He's going to win first place. And now I'm supposed to go hard again, but I don't have a ton of energy left. I'm putting in a little bit of a dig here. This is weak. This is weak power. Wow. Didn't know it was that bad. But so my teammate there, Adam, in fourth wheel in terms of the placements. Kato, the next wheel, and teammate Ryan next. So we're we're in really good position there for the rest of the places going to that final sprint. I'm cooked. That was not quite the lead out we planned. I was on the front for much longer than was planned. It wasn't like I put in some superhuman effort looking at my power numbers and stuff, but my MPA, it dipped considerably. I was fatigued there. Why don't we look at the final placements? So I mentioned Surfer Nicket's first. Brent got second, so I asked my teammate Andy about that. He said kind of got a little boxed in terms of the turning. Placement of the turn, he had to kind of get off the power. Now I don't know exactly what happened. I've been in that situation before. You have to time your pass in terms of the turn. Sometimes you have to do that, inside out move. So I don't think Brent probably did anything wrong, but the timing of the pass was not good. So I don't know if he would have been able to beat Brent in the sprint anyway. But we got third place, so that's a good place for us. We're on the podium. And let's look at the rest of the results here. Kato got fourth, so that's a little bit unfortunate. We would have preferred him to be at least fifth. We don't think of Kato as a sprinter because he's usually not in the sprint. He's done something else like a lead out. So maybe we need to rethink things here. Kato, the non-sprinter. Kato is a sprinter. Very much a sprinter. Kato got fourth. Ryan, my teammate, got fifth. Let's see, we got Adam 9th, and of course I got 13th sitting up there. We got 11th as well with Jorge. In terms of the standings, Gary got 7th. So it was to our advantage that he not have a very high placement. But overall, I think it was pretty effective race for our team. We would have liked a little bit better in terms of the placements, but I think the strategy was on point, and we were all in a position to fulfill our roles and to get as high placements as possible. Again, I wish I was a little more fit, could do a little more, but you can still race even if you're not the most fit you've ever been. If you're used to podiums and you're not fit enough to be on the podium, I don't think that means that you have to quit racing or whatever. So anyway, hope you enjoyed it. Like, subscribe, whatever. Comments, it makes me, the comments, if you make a comment, it helps motivate me to think someone's paying attention and to continue doing these videos. But anyway, that's it for the Tuesday Night Crit this week. I will see you later. Bye-bye.